Hey y'all, welcome to Whip Tips again. This is the second part of my front end rebuild. I can't remember what episode we're on for Cherokee therapy, but that doesn't matter. Hopefully you guys are finding this useful. Today, what we're going to do is the first part of actually rebuilding the front end. My Jeep now has been up on its stands for about a week, and we're going to be putting in new U-joints in the axle halves. We're going to be putting in new ball joints in the axles themselves, upper and lower ball joints. We're going to be putting in the steering knuckle and reassembling the brakes and the rotors and all that kind of stuff. And then we're putting on the new RT steering that hopefully I won't have to run for long because I'm not a big fan of RT. It's basically just crown. But anyway, that's it. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so last episode, first of all, this is Doc. Welcome back to Whip Tips. Last episode of the front end XJ rebuild, we went over how to partially disassemble your front end. So take apart the steering knuckle, all those components and stuff. Remove the U-joints. And in this episode, we're going to start reassembling. So you can see from here, I've got all my new U-joints right here. Spicer is the brand I always use in these cases. And I got new ball joints, new upper and lower for both sides right here. C-clips for the U-joints. Everything's here ready to go. What I've done off camera is I have taken my my axle halves and where the U-joints sit. Let me see if I can get this in front of the camera here. Where my U-joints sit right here, I've sanded lightly with 320 grit sandpaper, and I've gone ahead and taken some grease and put a film of grease in there to make it easy to push the new U-joints in. So we're going to go ahead and do this the easy way, well, easy-ish way. Instead of going to my workbench, which is loaded with a bunch of crap, we are going to go ahead and do it right here on the ground with a hammer. A totally acceptable way to do it, just got to be careful. So let's go ahead and get started with the actual assembly of the U-joints. All right, so what you have to do is you take your U-joint, which you can see right here, hopefully. I'm having trouble looking at all the orientation of the camera and my phone and everything. Take the U-joint, and the U-joint is going to go inside this collar right here. And so what you have to do is remove the caps, the end caps. Be careful not to mess up the needle bearings, right? And we're just going to squirt a little bit of extra grease in there. Careful not to mess up the bearings. All right, next, you're going to take that U-joint and you're going to lift up this end, kind of initially place your cap like that. And I've got a box here that I rest the other end of my axle on that's exactly the right height to keep it level. And what you want to do is you're careful to make sure, you may have to lift up your axle to do this before you actually put it down on the cap. You want to feed the ends of the new U-joint through those holes just to start them like that. And then you want to make sure that the end of your U-joint is going inside those needle bearings, which sometimes you can get one out of place and move it in, and that'll really mess up your day if you keep going at that point. And then you want to make sure, as carefully as possible, that the end cap of your U-joint is flush and going in straight into the yoke of your axle half. And then what you're going to do is take a hammer, and you're not going to, wallop this thing. You're just tapping it home, basically, is what you're doing. Okay? Checking your work as you go. Making sure that everything is going in straight. So far, so good. And if you don't want to, you don't have to hammer it all the way down. I'm about there. I'm about all the way in, but it's probably not quite flush with where it needs to be, and that's fine, because remember, we have to do those C-clips. Then you take the other end, and again, make sure that those needle bearings are all lined up straight and where they're supposed to be. And I had cleaned off the ends of everything. I don't know how that got dirty, but anyway, place that on the end, making sure that the needle bearings are around where the stud pointing up from the U-joint. And then you're going to tap that home. Again, making sure everything's straight. You're not going crazy on this thing. You're just hammering it in. Okay, it's not quite all the way down yet, but pretty close. And I've got some areas where you have to be careful now. These end caps can come off. I've got some areas where you can see this end is further in than this end. So what I'm going to do is put a C-clip in there. Again, where eye protection, these things go flying if you're not careful. C-clip in there. And that looks good. And now what I'm going to do is hammer it from this side. And I may have to put something underneath it to give it some room so that it can actually hammer not in that downward in that direction the way it needs to go. So give me a second here to find something that I'm not going to destroy. And really, you can use anything here. A block of wood, block of metal, whatever you've got on hand. I'm going to try it with a block of wood. Okay, and now I'm starting to see where the C-clip is going to go. May need to put it down a little further. So let's see, if I did this all correctly, this should just kind of barely fit in there. Whew. Sometimes these are hard to get on. I don't want to mess up the rubber gasket kind of thing at the end. So it's kind of cattywampus off to the side there, so let me grab a screwdriver and tap it where it needs to go. Okay. Now, I'm not sure that's seated yet. I'm comparing both sides to see if there's any room. And I think this side needs to go in just a little bit more. Nope, I don't like that. So the hammering is not giving me what I want. There's no way I bent the yoke or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my press to try and push it down further. I was hoping not have to go back to this thing because I hate using it, but sometimes you don't have any choice. So now I don't know if you can see this, but basically I did one press on this, just a quick one, really short. And I don't know if you can see this. I'll try and do something in post-processing, maybe make it clearer. But this C-clamp, let me see if I can get that light to stay. This C-clamp right here too much of it is showing on this side. And so what that means is it's not seating into the groove, which means I've got to push it further, you know, toward the direction of the camera. And I'm hoping something is not like majorly screwed up here. So fingers crossed. I don't know why this is being so difficult, but no problem with rotation. Everything's fine. It's very smooth. You know, we'll just keep going. I'm going to do another press. And look, I'm not going to show you it just because it takes a while to set this thing up and everything. But basically, I'm setting, this is the end I want to push towards. So I'm setting it up at the bottom in the hole so it can go through the hole. And then I set this up. I make sure everything's aligned, and then I just, you know, tighten it up and press it down. So we'll see if the second press does the trick. So I'm gonna get some of these boxes and stuff out of the way because I don't need them cluttering things up. I went ahead and pressed it the second time and cleaned out the actual kind of groove that the C-clip was supposed to go in, and that did the trick. It's all installed now, and they're pretty stiff. I'm not gonna lie. This is I can move them by hand. It takes a little bit of oomph, and I think that's okay. As long as they move, I think that's okay with U-joints. If somebody knows any different, please, you know, put it in the comments. I don't think I broke anything. It's, you know, I'm not hearing any clicking, not feeling any grinding. It's all smooth. It's just super tight. Not tight enough that I can't move it, just tight enough that it takes a little bit of oomph to get that thing to spin on one axis. So anyway, now we're going to do the same thing with the actual end of the axle. That's going to go through our hub, and you can see it's pre-greased and everything, so it should be just as easy as the last job. It might be a little bit more of a pain in the ass because now this thing's going to be moving around. So let's give it a shot. Go ahead and try and set this up. Remember, we're going to take the caps off and place them somewhere nice and secure. If I can get this cap off, that cap's not coming off. There we go. And make sure the needle bearings are all aligned properly. That one came off much easier. Oh, and so did the little plastic rubberish gasket. I'm going to put that back down there. And I'm going to put this in an orientation so that it's not going to gather any dirt off my garage floor. And let's not forget, we're adding grease. Just a little dab will do ya. Okay. Now, let's get this oriented like that. So we have to do this, just like we did in the last one. You kind of have to put one end through, push it down, keep pushing until this top end that I'm fighting with will come through. And there we go. That little rubber gasket thing. Oh, I just put it down on the garage floor, dang it. No, it's fine. I don't want grit and grime on the ends of this, and neither do you. So let's go ahead and do this real quick. We're going to get that in so that we don't mess up the needle bearings. I'm going to pre-position it there. And then I'm going to take a quick look at where we are. I find this part to be the most challenging because, you know, I think I just pushed some bearings out of position. Yeah, I did. And that's why I find this challenging. This part is a little bit less forgiving, a little more difficult to deal with. So, you know, you want the end of your, there we go, that's what I want. I want to be able to do that. Push this up. So what I did was I made sure that a little bit of the U-joint was sticking out so that I can do this with the end cap, right? And now we're gonna start hammering after I make sure that everything looks about even and level and straight. Yes. Here's the problem here, though, that I'm worried about, and that is that looks like we're at a little bit of an angle, and I'm not going to start hammering anything until I'm sure that it's all straight as I hammer and that the force is going in a straight direction. Because I've done that before where I'm hammering in at an angle, and boy, does that stink, because then you mess up the insides of your yoke. And I think actually just leaving it on the ground Gets me a bit of a straighter angle when hammering. So that's what we're going to do. Things are still moving around on me though, so darn it, I just move things around. Let's just start with a tap tap. And I can feel it going down. I'm being very gentle here, not going crazy, because I want to check and see, and that looks pretty good. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit in this direction, a couple of taps. Now we're going really straight in, and I think we're good to go to drive it home, basically. So let's do that. Now, you want to be careful and not hit this part of the thing, but if you bend that metal piece right there, you can just bend it back. What I don't want to do is hit, see how that's poking through the end of the U-joint? Do not want to hit that. Let's see how we're going. Yep, that's almost home. So what I might do, let's see if I have a small socket or a big socket. Let me see here. So let's see. I don't think that is, I definitely want to clean that. Yeah, I don't want to use that grimy socket. I was thinking of putting a socket around that. So what I might do is just use this socket to hammer on. Keep pushing it down. There, that's far enough for me. And I am pretty sure that I did not just unalign the needle bearings. If I did, I'm gonna have to do this job all over again. I have no idea if I just did. I should not have picked it up like that. Bad mistake on my part. So anyway, just be careful and cognizant and aware of those freaking needle bearings. This is one of the harder jobs for me. I've done it, this is my second time doing it, so I know a little bit more about how this goes and how it should go, but you know, I still mess it up, obviously. So I'm gonna put this on. Hopefully the needle bearings are all, you saw I checked to make sure they were all aligned. I'm gonna tap one end of this because it looks like it's a little bit off. Or I may be hitting a needle bearing, I'm not sure. Man, those are all tightly packed in there, dude. All right, let's get that straight. I think that's in. That really looks like it's good right there. Let's start hammering. And again, I am not going nuts on this hammer, okay? I'm just giving it some firm taps, trying to drive that in. And what I think I'm gonna do, man, that feels really good. Not as tight as the inside, this one on this axis, but we're not all the way cinched down yet. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that over. This is all grimed up now. Give this a couple of hammers. And because I can see the groove right there that the C-clip is supposed to go in. So I'm going to clip that one, and then I'm going to do the press again. Do not forget this step of putting the clips in. If you do, you're gonna have a bad day with your axles. I think you'd probably find out pretty darn quickly that something isn't right. Well, let's try just hammering this side. Let's try that. You can hear from the sound of the hammering that it's going in. It changes tone. And I'm just checking, I can see a little of the groove. Let me see if I can just hammer it a little more. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that on camera or not. I know it's kind of a bad angle, but you can, man, you can see the groove. It's right there. So close. I think I am going to have to press it the last bit of the way. So I'll go ahead and show you the ugly press process. I'm looking over on the side to make sure that the other end is aligned in the hole so the bottom cap has someplace to go. The last thing I want to do is press on this top cap and then have the bottom cap caught on the bottom of the press, and now I'm just pushing metal together and destroying stuff. I could break the needle bearing. You just got to be careful about what you're doing and how you do it. There we go. I think that's good. Check one more time. Man, I think we're there. I am going to just do that a little bit. Walk it over, see. Yeah, I think we're good now. And I'm not going to give it a big honking, you know, big, you know, all my force press here. I'm just going to push it a little bit. Then I'm going to look and see how much groove is showing. And I think I can go a little bit more. All right. Hopefully that did it. Because I hate using that thing. It's such a pain. Oh, and it's much tighter now too. All right, let's see. There's the groove. Let me turn it that way. Maybe you can see that. The groove is showing right there. Make sure I got all the junk out of it. Let's try that C-clip. Okay. Now, sometimes I have to kind of get it home with a screwdriver that now I can't find. There it is. Just going to take my hammer, tap on that C-clip again. Wear eye protection. This is where I almost got, you know, DI'd first time I did this job. So let me see. I want to make sure that that is fully seated. And I'm not sure it is. Let me compare what the other side looks like. No, I did not fully seat that C-clamp, that C-clip. It's close. I don't know if it's just a grain of grit or something stopping it. I'm going to try the screwdriver tapping again, see if that does it. Sometimes you can force it in. If I can get this thing oriented the right way. It's such a pain. I hate this part of the job. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to get it oriented, so let's just go straight in. That's got it. I am all the way in now. So you may have to do that with your C-clips and stuff, because this is kind of precision. So, you know, it may take some effort and work, but there you go. That axle is ready to be reinstalled. Make sure, you know, the pack will come with 4 C-clips. Make sure you use all 4. If you've got one left over, there may be a problem. And we are going to just set this aside someplace where it won't get all dirty, greasy, and grimy, and move on to ball joints. All right, so we are at the part where we're going to start pressing in the ball joints. And I believe that, if I'm not mistaken, It has to be done in order, but I'm not sure on that. So somebody chime in the comments, but I believe you have to put in the bottom one first. And I don't have to do this, but I highly suggest if your ball joints were super old, mine were not, so there's not much dirt here and rust. But you want to, like, you know, clean this up before you do this. So if you're doing this with, you know, if you're replacing old ball joints, then definitely take some sandpaper, fine grit or something and clean all that up. And then, excuse me, and then work on pressing it in. So, and again, this is my ball joint right here. It's a spicer, like I showed you earlier in the video. I'm going to put that down. And here is where that that adapter, the Jeep adapter kit for ball joint or for bearing pressing and all that comes in. This part right here, the ball joint presses in from below, the lower one. And this part right here is going to sit on top so that there's something for the ball joint top to go into, right? So it won't run into this. This is, the circumference of this is just bigger than the round hole that the ball joint goes into. The nice thing about this adapter, though, I don't know if you can see it on camera, it's tapered. So one end is shorter, you know, along this direction. This end is taller. And the reason it's like that is because the Jeep axle is not straight and level right there. And so this allows you to get the ball joint in straight and level. So we're going to orient that the right way, and I have to double check to make sure which is the right way. So hold on one second and I'll come back and show you. But this bottom piece is also really nice because guess what? You can take off this boot, and I probably will just to shoot some extra grease in there. But I can do that after I install the ball joint. The nice thing about this adapter is it goes over and fits snugly right against that collar, this Spicer ball joint collar, so that I can press up on this from below, see how it's closed on the bottom, and push that ball joint up and in. I'm going to leave links to this stuff in the description below. Makes it so much easier. I think it's the best money I ever spent, since this may be an ongoing thing with Jeeps where I have to keep replacing ball joints. God, I hope not. So anyway, I'll be right back. I want to make sure I get this oriented correctly and tell you the correct orientation. So stand by. Definitely want the thinner edge. Sorry for the little noise there. You definitely want the thinner edge on the inside and the thicker edge on the outside to compensate for that thickness difference. That's the idea. Ignore for now the fact that my axle is kind of angled like this. That's something I have to correct with control arms, and I'm going to do that in a future video. For now, we're just doing ball joint, steering knuckle, rebuild, kind of that part of the suspension. So I want to make sure I get this right, and you know, I just have to eyeball it. There's no other, I wish it had come marked, and I don't think it did. So, you know, doing my best to figure out which is the thickest edge or thickest point and put that on the outside, right? About there, okay? Now I'm going to take the bottom with the ball joint in it, and in this case, the spicers do not come with a snap ring. At least this one didn't, so God, I hope there is no snap ring. I know in my last ones there was no snap ring, so I think I'm okay there. And we're going to be pressing upward, like I said earlier, so let me give myself some room on the old C-clamp. So that is where I want it. I should probably tape it there or something, but oh well. So I'm going to do that. Make sure that's in the hole, kind of angle everything to try and avoid what I just did, which was push that out of the way. Get that seated, and it is. Start cranking that up so that it can't really fall apart. Good. Now I'm going to do, now that I've got it kind of all hanging there together, I'm going to do one more check around to make sure that there is a place for the ball joint to go. And I believe that's good. And that the thick end is in fact on the very outside, which it is. So I believe we're good to go, and I'm going to start cranking down on that, the press, the ball joint press. So here we go. very strange. It just shifted. So before I go any further and mess up the axle, I'm just double checking here to make sure everything's good. I mean, it looks fine. Why isn't it? Before I really screw things up, look, it's good to do these things slowly. I don't know why it's giving me this headache that it is right now. Oh, and I have ripped the boot. So definitely, listen, before you do this, do yourself a favor and remove that boot, because that's I don't know what I'm going to do now. I may take one of the boots off of my old ball joints and just use that. Son of a gun. Turns out I think I was using the wrong adapter on the bottom end. So we're going to try this again, and hopefully it'll work this time. So let me get everything set up. I believe this is going to be a little more of a pain to set up because this adapter is taller than the wrong one I was using. So we'll see how this goes. It's still going to be a pain in the ass. Jeeps are always a pain in the ass. I have so many places now that I have to bleep over because I was just swearing. Such a pain. I gotta do this all the way out. I mean, it still leaves some threaded in so that it's not. God. You can do this without the adapters, but as much of a pain as it is to do this job with the adapters, I don't know why you wouldn't want to just spend the extra dough to get it done. Just a little bit more quickly and a little bit more easily. It's never going to be easy, but that's life with a Jeep Chrysler product. Come on, man. It's not even going in. Nothing is seating together correctly. What the heck is going on with this thing? I think that's right. Look, everything looks straight. I'm just worried about this piece up top because it's not wanting to cooperate, but we'll see. Let's go ahead and try round 2. That looks better. It's going in very straight. And it's very tight, which makes me happy. I'm going to switch from my ratchet to my cheater bar because it's getting tough to push up in there. I may check in a second. In fact, I'm going to check that now before I do this. I'm going to check and make sure it's got someplace to go and it's not pressing up against the top there. Because now that the ball joint is kind of snugged up in, yeah, we've still got plenty of room to play with and everything, so that's not why it's getting tight. It's getting tight because it's finding its home. I'll loosen that up just a little bit more. Okay. Now I gotta find a fat edge. Make sure that's pointed to the outside. My gosh. What a pain. You are going to see, like on other channels, oh, this is how you do it, boom. You know, and it looks easy as hell. When in reality, what those guys are probably doing is what I'm doing, and they're cutting it all out. And you're not seeing that kind of crap. I am so sick of this. Oh my God. there she is. Bottom one is done. Let's move on to the top. Now, if you do mess up your boot like I did, if you rip your boot and you have to put it, look at that. This thing isn't moving. Well, it can, but it's hard as hell to move. If you do mess up your boot like I did, it's not a reason to panic. You can always buy, they sell boots all over the place, and just buy a bunch until you find one that fits and you can put it on here. You can remove them anyway, so that thing getting ripped it's not the end of the world. Don't freak out. All right, let's move on to the top. Okay, so for this, pushing in the top ball joint, see I've got it kind of arranged there, just sitting on top. I haven't hammered it in or anything. Some people will. I've just kind of by hand pushed it in a little bit, made sure it's straight. Be careful of that Zerk fitting. This tapered piece is going to play a role again. I can't wait. But in this case, you're going to put it on the bottom, right? And the fat end is going to face out. And then on the top is going to go that big honking piece that we used on the lower ball joint, just like that. And we're going to press it down this time instead of up. So let's go ahead, and I've got to reassemble this baby. Oh man, this is a tiring job if you keep screwing it up. All right, so let's go ahead and get that seated in there. And the fat end is going to be pointed out. So we want to do this. Fat end out. I think we're going to have to come in from the top maybe. Such a pain. And I've now messed up the straightness. Jeez. All right. No, I can't get that. I don't know what's going on this time. Huh. Maybe this is where that other adapter that I tried using. Yep, that's where this comes in. It's, if you can see here, one's shorter. You want to use the shorter one. Otherwise, you'll never get this on. There's just no room at the top. You can't see it because it's off camera, but there's just no room at the top where I'm doing this, and so I can't get a socket on there. I can't use my ratchet. So here we go. And that's it. Ball joint installed. Looking good. So listen, you're just going to do the same thing on the other side, right? I'm not going to show you the passenger side, but you're going to put the ball joints in the same way on the passenger side, bottom first, top next. Make sure you get the fat end of that tapered thing pointed out. This is, by the way, this is a Dana 30 axle. I should have mentioned that up front. It may be different if you're working with an axle that's different from this. So everything I'm doing is on a Dana 30 front axle on my XJ. And then from here, I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of my front end, and then I'm going to show you how to put your new steering back on and everything, and the knuckle, and reattach the hub and all that. So that's coming up as soon as I take a quick break. It's going to be in this video though, so just stay with me. Okay, so I'm on the passenger side now because there's a little more room over here in my garage. But what we're going to do now is attach the steering knuckle to the tie rod ends. So what you want to do is and the torque specs, before I forget, it's going to be 80 foot-pounds for the lower one and 75 for the top one, right? So 80 for the lower, 75 for the top. And this is pretty easy. All we're going to do, I'm just going to kind of show you for a second, then I'm going to do it. All you're going to do here is basically take your steering knuckle. Remember, the brakes go toward the rear. Get the holes aligned with the tie rod end or with the ball joint studs. Slip it up there, and then you're going to attach your castle nuts and start torquing those down. So let me find my castle nuts and get going on this. We're going to do this to 75 foot-pounds. Double check and make sure that I didn't just, it's not 75. Now we get our cotter pins, which did not come. These did not come with the new ball joints, and they should have, which is very annoying. But you don't want to do this without them. So just find the holes where your cotter pin goes. You can get cotter pins at AutoZone or Advance Auto, Riley's, all that kind of crap. We're just going to slide them in and take the ends and bend the ends out so that thing's going to stay put. That's one. And that's the other. Then you do the same on the other side. And you got your steering knuckles back in. So I just did an entire section of video where I put the new hub bearing assembly in and got everything torqued down and all that. And then I realized I forgot to put in the axle. So we are at the point where you're going to insert your axle through the steering knuckle and back into the axle tube. Now mine's pretty clean. I already looked in there, but a lot of people, one trick is that what they'll do is you don't want to carry dirt into your differential And so what a lot of people will do is tape together a whole bunch of pieces of paper, roll those up tightly, insert that into the axle tube all the way to the end, then let it go so it unrolls, and then push your axle in through that way. And it keeps it from picking up any dirt and stuff like that. But I've done this before. I'm just going to wing it. But your mileage may vary. So make sure at this step, I've already got the bolts in here so I can hang my dust cover. Make sure your dust cover is oriented in the right direction like this. It's curving. Its curve is basically toward the inside of the car. It's hanging off the bolts right now. Its curve is toward the inside of the car, and the gap in the dust cover right here, I don't know if you can see that, if I can get the right angle. The gap is where the brake is going to go, where the caliper is going to hang. So make sure you do that, and we're going to go ahead and put the axle through right now, try and do my best. And we have moved to the passenger side because there's more room to work here. But the process is the same on the driver's side as it is on the passenger side. So I'm going to try and be very careful and not scrape up too much dirt as I put this in. Let me just check it first. All right, that looks good enough. So let's go ahead and do our best here. Make sure you have plenty of lighting. So let me see, what I may do is move this hand inside here to support it as I go through. And at the far end is a seal that you don't want to damage, so you want to be gentle with this. Definitely want to be gentle as you go through here, because once you get to that far end, then you got to kind of make it through and into the differential where the splines match up with. So I am at the end, and here is where I have to be very careful. Sorry, one of my lights is going crazy. Here's where I have to be very careful that I don't wind up knocking out that seal and making myself have an even bigger, more difficult job. And so I think I made it there. I'm going to keep going gently. And now I think I'm there. I had to get the splines aligned, and I think that's it. She is all set in the differential. Right, now, next. We've got that in. What we're going to do next is take our hub assembly, and it's a bearing and a hub, and this is the ones that I use at SKF. I strongly recommend you go with either SKF or Timken. Those are the best brands. I like SKF better than Timken, but it's really a matter of opinion. What is not a matter of opinion is if you go with a cheap model, you're just asking for trouble. You don't want your hub falling apart and your wheel coming off as you're going 80 down the highway. So you got to line the splines of the axle with the splines of the I'm just checking those are clean, with the splines of the hub bearing assembly. Then we're going to turn it so that that bolt lines up there, and we're just going to start threading through one of the bolts until it catches a little bit. Nope. This can be hard because it's got to be flat and oriented correctly, and once you've got the axle in there, that can be difficult to do. Otherwise the threads won't catch. Not difficult, just a pain. Like so much else in this Jeep. So I think that's got it, but I'm going to have to use my socket wrench. So I'm just going to tighten this one, which I know is caught. And it'll start bringing the hub in closer. Do not forget to do your dust shield here. Plenty of people forget that and have to take it all apart again to put the dust shield on, or just leave the dust shield off. But this is the point where if you want to use your dust shield, you got to put it on. Yeah, that's not catching, I don't think. Come on, piece of garbage. Work with me, would ya? Yeah, as it turns out, none of these have caught because they have to be completely straight. I hate this. You know, Jeeps are just such a fucking pain in the ass. Okay, that is caught. So what we're going to do is take advantage of that one. If it's caught, it should bring the hub back in closer. And all I see is it pushing further away. You piece of garbage. You fucking piece of garbage. You complete pain in my butt piece of garbage. No, I don't want to cross thread, so I'm backing this one out. Let's try this top one again, see if that's got it. All right, top one's definitely going through. Now let's try this side one. And these get torqued to 75 foot-pounds, which is convenient because that was the last torque setting for when I did the castle nuts on the top ball joint. All right, so those two are nice and snugged up. Now I just got to get that last one in and started. Now we'll torque it to 75. All right, all torqued. Axle is in. Now, this one, remember, we've saved our axle nuts. Washer goes in first. Okay. Then your nut. Okay. And I believe this is to 175 foot-pounds, but let me double check on that. Let me see if I've got the right socket too. Yeah, I've got the right socket. So let's get that. Yeah, this is going to be fun. Trying to torque this while it's spinning. I may have to take the, I may have to do this when it's on the ground. And take the center cap off the wheels. That's what I'm gonna have to do. So for now, I'm just leaving that axle nut on there. We'll come back to that after I get the wheels on. All right, so somehow I recorded this part of the video without actually recording any audio. So anyway, here's where you're going to put your brake rotor back on, and you can see I've got the caliper bungeed and hanging so it's not stretching or damaging the brake line itself. You're going to put the rotor back on, and then you're going to basically, if you have to at this point, compress your brake cylinder. You're going to want to do that carefully. I did not. You're going to want to make sure that your bolts are all greased and everything. And here I'm just checking to make sure they're going in okay and everything's clean. And so from here, essentially what you're going to do is after you put the rotor back on, it just slides on. Very simple. Putting some grease on the actual bolt itself here because you want those to move smoothly in the sleeves. And so then all you're going to do is essentially slip your caliper back on. You've got a seat for these Jeep XJs. The bottom part of the caliper has these kind of, there's these steel arm parts that kind of latch on to the bottom of your steering knuckle. So you want to get that on first and then kind of slide it so that the bottom will already be slid on and latched on like I just described. And then from the top end of the caliper, you're just going to basically push it forward toward the front of the car until that actually seats all the way. And then from there, it's a little bit of a struggle to get the bolts through the sleeves and all the holes aligned and everything, but eventually you'll get it. It's just trial and error. Don't get grease on the brake pads. We didn't break the seal on any of the lines, so I'm not going to have to bleed the brakes in this video. It's very, very simple from here. And then there are torque specs for the brake bolts themselves that hold the caliper to the steering knuckle, but I do not torque here. I basically just make sure they're super tight. You don't want to, mess up any threads or anything. The torque specs are fairly low for these, as I recall, but this is something you're going to have to figure out on your own. Do you want to just do it good and tight like I did, or to use the torque specs? That's your call. But anyway, I'm right there. I'm just checking to make sure the brake line isn't twisted and everything looks good. So I just keep going with the job, and here I'll just finish it off with music. All right, so at this point, you should have the brakes on, everything kind of tightened up. The ball joints are torqued. The castle nuts to the ball joints are torqued. Essentially, from here, for my rebuild now, the next step I'm going to is the steering. And then in part 3 of this, I'll show you how to replace your control arms. So let's go ahead and move on to steering. All right, so getting ready to set up the steering. And I know I've taken a measurement from steering knuckle to steering knuckle, about 52.5 inches. But I'm also going to measure my old steering, which was dialed in and everything, to try and help get as close as possible to being dialed in. And I'm going to measure from center of Zerk to center of Zerk. So that's going to give me about 36.5 inches. let's see, actually about 36 inches and 1/2 and 5/8. 36 and 5/8. So what we're going to do is take our piece right here, and I'm going to adjust it. And I'm going to do this off camera, because I'll do it right here. The heck. So we want 36 and 5/8. That's about 36 and 5/8. So I've just been sitting there spinning it until I get to about 36 and 5/8. Close enough. All right, now we're going to measure. Let's turn it over if we can. Going to measure the steering rod. From center to Zerk. And that's almost 42 spot on. It's about 42 and 1/8. So now the 42.5, I went ahead and did the same thing where I basically measured it with a tape measure and spun everything and all that good stuff. So we're in business now. This is 42.5 on the steering and whatever I said earlier for the drag link. And so now what we're going to do is go ahead and put the drag link into the passenger side steering knuckle and into the pitman arm. We're not going to torque it down yet, though. We're just going to do that finger tight and have it installed and just hanging out there. So let's see, I'll go ahead and do that first. And then after I torque it up, I'm going to go ahead and hit it with the grease gun before I put the wheels on, because I don't have a 90-degree grease gun head, which is something that's pretty valuable when you're dealing with greasing up these steering kits and you're still using the stock wheels off of the Jeep that you're working on, because I don't know, the back spacing is such that it makes it hard to do that. So anyway, this is always fun to try and do one hand, one person. Oof. So I think I got a few threads on there. Now let's go ahead over here to the pitman arm. And she is finger tight on the pitman arm. Alright, so now I'm going to torque all those down and put in cotter pins before I install the steering dampener. So got to look up the torque specs real quick. Now I know I mentioned this earlier. Sorry, my GoPro died, but this is an RT heavy-duty steering kit, which I'm not a fan of, but I'm not going to keep this on here for long. I'm just going to use it right now. And then when I get enough money for a stinky fab, regular, like, 1-ton steering kit, the kind that does not use, the kind that uses ball joints, then I'm going to go ahead and get that. But for now, I need something, and this is heavy duty. It's a little bit more sturdy than your stock steering components. It'll work. It'll do. So I'm just snugging that up. The torque is going to be 55 pounds on basically all of these. It's 19mm bolts. All right, so now I'm gonna hit it with a grease gun. I need both hands for that, but I'm just gonna hit each circ with a grease gun and then come back and I'll torque them up to 55. All right, torquing it down to 55. Got the torque wrench set. I may have to put this down simply because I'm gonna need both hands to do this, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm gonna need both hands. Look, torque wrench, set it to 55, torque it down to 55, you'll be okay. That goes for this tie rod end. That goes for the drag link to steering link setup right here, for the pitman arm ball joint up there, and for the other steering knuckle over there, tie rod end. 55 foot-pounds. All right, so for assembling with this RT kit, you got to do some assembly on the steering dampener. And what I do is this steel collar has to go inside that rubber bushing right there. And that is the end that's going to attach to your drag link. So that's the piston rod end, essentially. So let me smear this grease around. Sorry, I wish my GoPro battery hadn't died. So I'm just going to smear that grease around a little bit, and now I'm just kind of pushing it in. I may have to put yeah, I'm going to have to take this off and do it with 2 hands, but after that I'll show you where the washers go. Okay, so I've gone ahead and connected the side of the damper to the frame where there is no piston rod, right? This is the side that you attach to the actual axle, just below the frame. I think I said attached to the frame, that's wrong. It's attached to the axle right there. And I've only spun it kind of like finger tight. So it's not bolted in, it's not torqued in or anything. And then this end, the piston rod end, is loose. And I'm gonna go ahead and attach it through that hole there. And the way you're gonna do this is you're gonna take this long bolt that comes with the kit. It also comes with a couple of very thick washers like this. And you're gonna stack one on the bolt. So you've got one thick washer stacked there. And then you're gonna feed the bolt through. You're gonna feed it through like that. Then another thick washer gets stacked right there, right? Then what we're gonna do, carefully so that I don't lose any washers. Let me see if I can put the phone down so it, no, I'm not gonna be able to. I've gotta pull the piston at the same time I'm keeping the washers on, and I'm not going to be able to do this with one hand. So pulling the piston, getting the bolt aligned with the hole on the drag link, and then I'm pushing it through. And there we go. There you are. See? Now it comes with a thin washer and a spring washer. And the thin washer, I believe, I have to check my old setup for reference. So it stacks up like this. Thin washer first, split washer next, and then nut. Okay, so there you have it, right? Thin washer, then there's a split washer there, and the nut goes last right there. And so you're going to torque this down to, let me check the torque specs on that. All right, so just reading the chat boards, it looks like 55 foot-pounds. So I'm not going to show you how I torque that down, but I'm going to torque that to 55, and then I'm going to torque this bolt here to 55. And then that should do it for the steering damper or steering stabilizer. So anyway, that's it. And then I'll show you lastly how I put the wheels back on, and then I can finally get this thing off jack stands. All right, so I've got everything torqued. The adjustments to the steering and the adjustments to the steering wheel centering, I'm not going to do. You can look up videos on how to do that. You know, that's not something I'm going to cover in this video. So all I'm going to do now is I've put the wheels back on and kind of hand tightened the lug nuts. So what I have to do next is we still have to torque the axle bolt, and we still have to torque the lug nuts themselves. And then this part 2 video is done. Basically, if all you want to know is how to do that part, you know, where you disassemble the steering knuckle, do U-joints in the axles, you know, new ball joints and new steering setup, then hopefully this was helpful. Part 3 is going to be how to get rid of all that awful low-end rough country control arm crap that I've got in this rig. I think I've got crown and rough country control arms, which are basically the bottom of the bottom. So anyway, so stay tuned for part 3, and let's go ahead and I'll go ahead and jack this thing up. And remember, you know, you need to be careful when you're doing this. Make sure that you get those jack stands out, and that the jack is pretty secure when you go under to get those jack stands. So I have to make sure this is uneven, so I have to make sure I can get this one first, the one on the passenger side. Almost there. All right, I think that's as far as the jack goes, so fingers crossed. Better not forget my GoPro. It's attached to the jack stand. Now let's go ahead and get that one out. And then we're going to drop this back to the ground. Hold on one second. All right, so now that the car's on the ground and everything's good and solid and safe, I can go ahead and torque this to 175 foot-pounds. This is the axle nut. Right now I'm doing the driver's side. Let me just double check and make sure that's a good. Yeah, that's solid at 175. All right. Next thing you do is put this little castle device thing on there, which is to secure. Make sure there's an opening for a make sure there's an opening for a cotter pin. And now I've got to use one hand to get a cotter pin. Never plan ahead. All right, so let's get focused here. All right, so I may have to go and get a longer one. I don't know if I feel safe with that. Let me see. Well, gonna run with that for now. Didn't realize that I only had short ones left. As long as I can bend that back, it should be fine. All right. So this thing will behave. Maybe I can get it bent. I'm gonna have to use both hands. And there we go. I think it'll be safe for now. And that's it at this point. I'm gonna do the other side, and I'm gonna torque down these lug nuts to about 110. There's a range, and I usually just go for 110. So I've torqued the axle nut. I'm gonna torque the lug nuts. I've put the cotter pin in here. We should be good to go. This should not spin off, and it does, Lord help me. In any case, that's it at this point. Go look at videos on how to align your Jeep and how to straighten the steering wheel, and then take it, you know, that's just to get you to an alignment shop. Take it somewhere that does full four-wheel drive alignments, get it aligned. You'll thank me once you're done doing that. So anyway, that's it. Hope you enjoyed this part 2. Stay tuned for part 3, where I'm putting in new core 4x4 tier 3 control arms. They're supposed to be really good. Dock out. Oh, hey, don't forget, like and subscribe. Definitely subscribe. So appreciate you watching this. Dock out. Oh, you made it to the end. That's awesome. Listen, I'm Doc. I'm the one who's, you know, the voice behind these videos. And I really appreciate you taking the time to actually watch the whole thing. That's fantastic. If you've got time, if you want to, if you like the video, hit like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to hit the bell button so you get notified of new videos when I put them up. I'm going to try and do one a week. And I'm going to do a bunch of Instagram stuff, so make sure you follow me there and on Twitter. Instagram's going to be the shorter stuff. I don't have any merchandise yet. I'm planning to, as the channel grows. If I succeed, I'll get some merch. For now, if you really want to help me in another way, you like these videos enough, I'm going to put links to my books in the description of the video. I'm a science fiction author in my spare time as well, so I'm juggling a lot of balls. But anyway, I really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you at the next one. Hey, do me a favor and turn this junk off. I don't know how to deal with tech.